fast forwarding, you're flying height walls, your number one goalkeeper, and then you get the call up from Nigeria to start your international career. How amazing was that?
Yeah, it was incredible. I think I was maybe 27 at the time, and kind of felt that it would probably never come.
Yeah.
And then sort of got the phone call the one day, and then wasn't too sure if it was a wind up. And yeah, Sunday Elise, who's an absolute legend in Nigeria, rang me. I spoke to him. I think he just wanted to feel out if I had a connection with Nigeria.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to know my family history.
Yeah.
And he's kind of asking questions, almost like questioning whether I was Nigerian or not. I think. And I kind of spoke to him, and then it sort of explained the dynamics of it, and explained that I'd love to play for Nigeria. He kind of said, well, we've got a squad coming up in 2 weeks. I'll let you know if I decide to pick you or not. And then kind of thought, oh well, it might not happen. Right then, maybe he's trying to just get inside my head. I don't know what he thinks of my personality, but yeah. Then he 2 weeks later, I think I was in the squad, and obviously delighted to sort of be going to Nigeria.
Yeah.
And so that it kind of happened that the number one Enyema, his mother wasn't very well at the time, so he ended up not coming to the squad, and I ended up playing, which I wasn't even really sort of predicting. I kind of just felt like I was just going to go and get a feel for the squad, and ended up playing both games.
I mean, the Nigerian fans, they're very passionate, aren't they? I remember going to Wembley to watch England versus Nigeria, and it was like a carnival. They had all the drums, and very passionate. And Nigeria's not a country that you kind of think of when you say football. You know, Nigeria's a country that's famous for running and stuff like that. But the fans absolutely get behind the Nigerian team, don't they?
Oh, they're football crazy there.
Yeah.
The watch all the Premier League games. They're really passionate about football. I couldn't after a game, like even go through the airport, like everyone recognises it, everyone watches the game, and they just love football. They love a style of play as well.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's like a Brazilian sort of style of play, but you can't go there and just stink the stadium out and just play for a 0-0 draw. They expect some sort of flair. They expect some sort of passion. You saw one put it through someone's legs, or you see someone do a skill, you'll hear the whole crowd. And they just love their football. So it's a huge country as well. You know, it's like over 200 million people in Nigeria, and not going beyond the world as well. So it was a huge honour to play for them, and it was just a dream to kind of be a part of it as well.
I think that's the pinnacle of anyone's football career, is, you know, representing your country and your nation.
Yeah, it's just much bigger than you. Do you know what I mean? And I love playing for Wolves. I loved every game, but I suppose because it's not as regular as well, and it's every few months, you're representing. Obviously, you're representing a country, representing 200 million Nigerians in Nigeria. I'm not even going to go beyond the estimates of the world, and you're representing your family as well, and that's kind of how it felt to me. I was kind of representing like my family and ancestors. It just went deep for me.
Because you're very passionate about your heritage. I've saw interviews with you, and you're very passionate about where you came from, the heritage, and that, you know, definitely shows when you're playing for your national country.
Yeah, it did. You know, I was fortunate for my granddad to be living here as well, and I had aunties in London, so I was quite fortunate to have that upbringing where I kind of knew where my family was. I knew what my culture was. I'd been to Nigeria as a kid when I was 10, 11. I'd always been around my aunties and cousins, so I kind of knew my heritage. I'd kind of been back to the village where we were from, and it's something that meant a lot to me. Has always meant a lot to me. Meant a lot to me growing up. And not a lot of people. Sometimes people don't really know where they come from, and they can kind of feel a little bit left out and alienated. But I'd always kind of knew where it's from. Felt passionate about where it's from.
It wasn't easy for you growing up, was it? You received a lot of racism in Birmingham, and then you moved to Staffordshire, and you received further racism, and not just you, your mum, your dad. So it wasn't easy growing up, was it?
No, not at all. I don't remember the Staffordshire Stone bit, but obviously my mum and dad, they remember a lot of it. My mum obviously walking in a pushchair and getting called an end of her and all that, you know. So yeah, it was rough back then, especially thinking the 80s as well. I know things are a lot better now, but we're still having problems now, really. So back in the 80s, it was completely different. And my dad, obviously coming from, my dad wasn't even born here; he was born in Nigeria as well. So, and my mum being a white woman from Sutton Coldfield, you know, it was just difficult for her to be sort of walking around Sutton sometimes when she'd be at her mum's. My dad as well, being with my mum, they'd not always get into problems, but I think with my mum, my dad and my Uncle John, I remember my mum saying that someone would always say something to my dad, and then even my uncle, then going from then, and it just all sort of problems kind of growing up. And yeah, I had my share of it as a kid as well, you know. get called all sorts of names as a kid, you know. It wasn't all the time, but it definitely happened enough for me to remember.
Yeah.
And it's just an unfortunate part of life, society at times. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm fortunate to kind of live sort of in the Midlands, where I think it's probably one of the best places to live, because we are quite multicultural, and we still have our problems, don't get me wrong, but I don't really, I've got friends from all over, everywhere in the world, you know what I mean, and I know they don't look at me any different, and I don't look at them any different. So obviously over time things have got a lot better, but it was a part of me kind of growing up, and it wasn't nice, but it probably at the same time it wasn't probably as bad for me as it's bad for my dad. So the generations, it does start to get better, and it does start to improve, and I think people are starting to get a little bit more educated about it, and you know, we're all the same at the end of the day, and we all feel the same, we all want the same in life. So I think it's an unfortunate that the way things can kind of get manipulated into sort of a you v us, and it's just ridiculous at times, especially for someone who's actually received racism. Obviously parents have gone through it as well, and it's just fortunate, because where we lived, we didn't see any. We didn't, especially in the flats. It was just all different people, and we just kind of got along, really. And then, but there's always sort of elements that kind of come up. But like I said, fortunate to probably live in Birmingham, Wolverhampton, the Midlands, where it's not as not hostile. I'm not saying it's hostile all over the country either, because England is probably one of the better places in the world, in all honesty. But it does happen now and again, but not as often as the 80s with my mum and dad, you know what I mean, and them having a mixed race son. It would have been difficult, much more difficult for them than it was for me growing up, and hopefully it will be for my daughters growing up.
I mean, we've seen a bit of that creeping back in with football over the last, I don't know.
It's never left, has it? Really?
No.
The Bulgaria England game and Tyrone Mings, I think, of this.
It happens in Bulgaria, but it also happens at Tottenham. It happens at other clubs here. So I don't think it's ever come out of the game. I just think people are just more aware of it, and I think the good thing now is that, and the important thing now is that the crowd are starting to point people out now, and I think that's kind of where it's got to go, because so it's all right Rudiger pointing it out. But
Mhm.
what about the 10 other people that have heard him say it around him?
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So I think the crowd are kind of, hopefully the crowd are starting to turn and not having it,
Yeah.
because that's kind of where the process has to go now. It can't be every black, Asian, gay person kind of having to fight their own battles all
Yeah.
the time. It's the good people around them saying, hang on, like, you're out of order there. Because I
Mhm.
know someone was saying it next to me. If someone was being homophobic or talking about Asian Chinese person, I'm not going to be like, oh, you're not talking about me, so I'll leave you alone.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going
yeah.
to be like, nah, don't say that. Do you know what I mean? I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of where it needs to go.
Of course, the next generation of fans have to be educated, don't they?
Yeah. Sky, did you say you can report that stuff on the Kick It Out app?
Yeah, obviously
before?
kicking out of massive fighting racism, so you can report that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah, I remember
You
you
kind of need to
saying
report it on site, though. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know
Mhm.
how someone's going to process an app. You know, it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
you know, the stewards as well. You know, and it's the clubs kind of as well have to kind of. It's not. We're not. Even if it happened at Wolves, it's not saying that there's a racist crowd here.
Yeah.
But also, if there's an incident, deal with it. And I think Wolves had an incident. Maybe was it last year?
Yeah, I remember.
And then they
seeing
dealt
that,
with it
yeah.
straight away. And I was thinking that's the way it needs to
Yeah,
do it. It
definitely.
doesn't have to say that. It doesn't mean there's a that all the racist crowds. I've actually never heard anything of Wolves ever in my life. But I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But it's the clubs. Maybe 5-10 years ago, when it has happened and happened to me at certain clubs, then when I've reported, it's kind of like, well, it's not us. You know what I mean? No one's heard nothing. Well, do you know what?
Push it
Just
onto
do
the
something
carpet,
about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Well, that's what you
we're
wanna
not
see.
accusing. We're not
Yeah.
accusing the club. I'm not accusing. I'm only pointing Tottenham out because that's just the recent one. But
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
saying that Tottenham Hotspurs is a racist fan crowd. It's just one idiot.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
one
yeah.
or two idiots.
That's all
But
it takes,
It's
you
just,
know.
you know what, like, Tottenham deal with it quickly,
Mhm.
and then kind of you just move on. It's not a problem. You're not saying your club's racist or anything like that. You got an incident there, deal with it swiftly. So obviously people don't have to hear that. Kids don't have to see that that's acceptable, and that I don't have to hear the abuse. My daughters don't have to hear the abuse. Anyone else who lives around there don't have to hear that sort of abuse, and kind of people learn to kind of embrace each other a little bit more. It's just a problem that's kind of in society with a lot of problems. Like I said, I'm not saying it's ridiculously bad and you can't walk down the street. It's nowhere near that. Unfortunate. We live in especially a country where it's not as bad, but it still does happen, and every time it does happen, we still have to point it out.
Amazing. No, it's true that what the things that you say, you know, we do need to be pointing it out, and as a society, we do need to be calling it out, and you know, all working together as one to eradicate any sort of discrimination in football. I mean, in the 80s it was horrendous, and I spoke to Neville Southall, and some of the stuff that Justine Sashny went through, it was absolutely horrible, and it's starting to creep back in, but
Yeah, you've seen it. I don't think it was ever as bad as it is.
Yeah.
Like Cyril Regis and people like that. Like really, John Barnes really got abused. It's not as bad as that, but I think there's just a lot more cameras as well, and a lot more people can kind of see these incidents. I don't know if it's any worse than it's ever been. I just think people are getting caught now, and people are getting pointed out, and the issue is rightly being brought up, along with homophobic and other issues. You know, people are actually kind of bringing it up, bringing what people say, bringing the racism up, and people can point them out because there's so many cameras at a football match now. If there's a good chance you get caught if you say something or you do something.
There was one at was it Man City a few weeks back, and he was making gestures towards Sterling, and he got picked up. I found exactly who he was, where he worked, and everything, and then he's been banned for life, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think could be all day to waste. I've been talking about it forever, you know, like and that. Yeah, you could go deeper into how it gets kind of stirred up and people get portrayed in a different light than other other players, which Sterling's kind of pointed out already, and it just kind of can drive it a little bit at times, and you know, we're all, whether we like it or not, we all get influenced by what we see at times and what we hear. So it's an issue that obviously us say as the ground, I'd say, like, we kind of have to deal with it on the ground level, but also up above, people who kind of spin the stories about young black men doing well. So it's like a Sterling kind of gets absolutely, well, did get killed in the media for going for breakfast and stuff like that. And but he didn't get the highs when he was probably been one of England's best players for the last 2 years. But he rightly pointed that out, and hopefully we can see a change now.